Jesus, just be in this place this morning. Let go of all your distractions and the things that bother your mind this week, and just let this be your prayer this morning.
Stand in faith. For now, your spirit moves. For now, we reach for you. Here we are, living on the edge of heaven, clinging to your holy presence. We're longing to be where you are.
I love you, Lord. Sing this out. We just want to be with you. Yeah. We just want to be with you. For now, sing it out this morning. For now. For now, you give us strength. For now. For now, heaven calls our name. Yeah. For now, our hope is this. Yeah. For now, we know you're coming again. Oh, go ahead and have your seat.
The floor is lava! The floor is lava! Go, go! The floor is lava! Hello, Collide Conference 2017. How are you guys doing today? Are you guys doing good? My name is Haimi, and I am from Hawaii. Shoots, I am the tallest man in the country. Who wants a frisbee? Does somebody want a frisbee? All right, come on, let me see you stand up. Okay. Oh, you can do better than that. Come on, be a little crazy in here. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's going really high. I'm sorry. Who wants a free t-shirt? What's a free? Right here in the middle. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you would think I'd be able to throw farther, but I'm really off balance. I'm top heavy, you know? Go, come over here. Yeah, I got some frisbees. Who wants some free Collide sunglasses? Here we go. You guys better tackle each other. You ready? 3, 2, okay. All right, here you go. Right here, there you go. All right. Come on, front row. You guys aren't very excited. Let's go. Frisbee, want a frisbee over here? Oh, yeah. Oh, I got one. Here we go. 1, 2, hey. Hey, you know, oh, wait. There it is. Sunglasses. Who wants some somebody over here, you want some sunglasses? Hey, go get it. Oh, I think that, wait, no, hold on. I think I have one more thing. Oh, yeah. I got some more sunglasses. Woo! Yes, how you guys doing today? You guys excited to be here? Awesome, we have some really exciting things planned for this afternoon. Who's been enjoying the beach parties so far? You've been enjoying the beach parties? Yes, man, today we are gonna be playing Ultimate Frisbee. Come on, who loves Ultimate Frisbee? Yes. And you can be on my team if you want. I'll just stand in the end zone and you just throw it to me. I'll catch it every time. We have a lot of cool things, exciting things planned today. We have an amazing session today. But first, we want to tell you about something called ELA. So go ahead and turn your eyes to the screen behind me and check out this video. Thank you. We love you all.
What's up, everyone that had ending that was not supposed to be there? But that's okay. Anyways, so my name's Jake. This is Sherelle. And then we got Zach. So, Sherelle, we've been doing interesting facts all week about, people coming up on stage. And so, just some interesting facts about Sherelle. I got 3 of them. Sherelle is the director of ELA. So she oversees all of students. Or all ELA students, and then she also is this amazing singer, ridiculous singer. And for any mentors that are single, she's single and ready to mingle. Everybody, yeah. All right. She just said I'm embarrassing. Anyways, so ELA is our leadership academy at Elevate Life, and we are actually launching a college with that. This fall, we have over 100 students that are going to be doing our Leadership Academy this year, which is crazy and amazing. And we have a daytime program, an evening program, and we have 6 degrees, 6 different degrees. Explain those degrees.
Yeah, so we have an associate's in arts, an associate's in ministry leadership for all of you guys looking to do pastoral leadership. We got a bachelor's in ministry leadership. We have a bachelor's in business administration, a bachelor's in organizational management, and a bachelor's in psychology.
Yeah, so we got some awesome things in store, and we're actually working on a couple other degrees, hopefully down the line, like an IT degree and communication, stuff like that. So it's an amazing opportunity. Zach here is actually a student. Both Sherelle and I were ELA students. Zach's doing our college this coming fall, but he's been a student on 2 separate occasions. So I'm going to have Zach kind of share his story a little bit.
How's it going, Collide? Yeah, so ELA is an amazing experience. I have not only done it once, but I am doing it a second time. And going into 2 years of my life, I actually left ELA on 2 separate occasions. And it's just so good. I keep coming back for more. It does what it tells, what it says it does. It's, a leadership academy. I was 18 when I entered, and I'm 21 now, and I definitely working in the secular world with corporate jobs at hospitals and IT firms and all that good stuff. It has enabled me to rise in the ranks of those corporates as well as in ministry and in my church. And yes, as Jake said, I'm doing the college in August, and I will be doing ministry leadership, pastoral leadership, getting my bachelor's in that. So yeah, it's a great experience, especially for young people.
Yeah, so the way that this looks is we're doing a college, so it's going to be obviously a little different setup. So we have a certificate program, a degree program. Our degree program, our day programs for 18 to 25-year-olds, which is you all, or you will be one day. Probably not now, but unless you flunked a few grades. But so we have 3 different parts. We have obviously your degree that you're going to get, and then we have practicums, which is what area you're in, so like kids or students, stuff like that. And then we have a student life, which we're gonna make it like a college experience. And so there's gonna be all sorts. There's gonna be intramural sports. There's gonna be you're gonna have a gym membership almost, and then chapel and almost, yeah. It's not like that. We're gonna make you go run 5Ks and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be a great experience, and we're looking forward to launching it. So if you have any questions for us, then we have a booth in the back, right outside the doors in the back. Come meet. Zach will be there, and Zach can answer all your questions. So yeah, come meet us out and back.
Come on, let's give it up for Elevate Life. Yeah, hey man, didn't they do a great job leading us in worship? Man, that was amazing. Let's give it up for the worship team. Thank you guys. You guys are amazing. We love having you here at Collide Conference. It's so awesome just to be one, like Pastor Will talked about last night. We're one church, capital C, man. It's so amazing how the gospel, the church, is worldwide. This is a worldwide movement. This is a global movement that we get to be a part of. Man, it's so exciting. We have an incredible morning session this morning. We get to hear from our very own Pastor Will. It's going to be an incredible message. Yeah, come on. And so, man, I just want to challenge you guys. Hey, I know you're tired. Man, we did some early morning devos with our summer staff, and we were all, like, exhausted. I know we've been going hard this week. The Lord has been doing so much. But, man, there's another, like, 20% that God wants to do in your life, and don't stop now. Like, he's taking you so far, and there's just a little bit further, man, that he wants to do. And so fight through the tiredness, fight through the sleepiness, fight through the exhaustion, lean in, and get everything that God has for you, man, because we're going to be going back to our cities next week. And I believe that what God did this week is going to pour out into our cities, pour out into our communities, and we're going to see schools change, neighborhoods change, entire cities change because of what God did here on Daytona Beach. So lean in, man, get what God has for you, and go ahead and turn your eyes to the screen and check out this video.
What's going on? Good morning, everybody. I love that Collide Conference 1. This is the last day of conference, which I know you're, I know. But 2, I love, and I said this yesterday, I just love that we're all connected, and I love that Elevate Life and Reverb and our Chili Church is here along with Next Level. And I love that with Elevate Life and with Next Level, we have these 2 incredible opportunities. And students, I just want to echo what they talked about, that there's something special and unique about these academies. We don't do them just because we think they're good ideas. Elevate Life students, I want to encourage you to join ELA and pursue your college dreams there. And Next Level students, I want to encourage you to be a part of the Next Level Leadership Academy, because I promise you, you will go further faster, and you will grow your character and your leadership, and it will help you to become more like Jesus. And in so many ways, not just even spiritual growth and character growth, but it'll help you even practically with leadership tools that will just, like I said, help you go further faster. So I just love that. I love that our 2 academies are here, and the 2 directors, Sherelle, Ashley, thank you guys so much for being a part of Collide Conference and for helping Collide Conference to happen. Hey, so this morning, last day of conference, I know everyone say, I know, that's how we feel. But the reality is we can't stay at the Daytona Hilton forever, right? I know you don't want to. Some of you are like, oh yeah, watch me try. But you just can't. Like, we have to move from here and go back to our worlds and where we live. And honestly, if you're thinking like I'm thinking, you might be thinking that's a little scary, right? I mean, because once we experience what we experience, once we experience, even night 1, I mean, from night 1 to day 2 to day 3, like every single moment, it seems like heaven is colliding with us, right? And it's like, I don't know if I want to leave this. I don't want to leave this presence. I don't want to leave what I feel right now. How many of you've made some good friends too, and you don't want to leave those friends, right? You want this to continue. You want to keep this going. But the reality is there is a world that we live in outside of this room. And so this morning, I wanted to take some time, and honestly, I wanted to help prepare you for tomorrow, because tomorrow will come, and tomorrow will take place, and tomorrow we'll go back to our worlds. And to be honest, some of you, tomorrow means that you're going back to really hard home lives. Some of you, you're going back to parents who belittle you and talk negatively and just cut you down when they can. Some of you are going back to households where yelling and fighting is just a part of everyday life. Some of you, you're going back, and maybe your home's great, but you're going back and you know that bully is going to be waiting at some point, at some time. Some of you, you're afraid to turn on your Instagram or your Facebook. Wait a minute, no one has Facebook. Right? But you're afraid. There's this fear of like, what will happen when I go back there? I'm not sure I want to go back to that place. I'm not sure I want to go back to that reality. But I want to encourage you. As I've said multiple times, the promise that God has for us is that His presence will go with us. His presence will go with us. But there are some practicals to living this out. How we live from this moment out actually matters. And if we want to continue to live in the freedom that we're living in currently, then there are some things that we actually have to do to make sure that we don't get enslaved back into what was enslaving us. We are now free. And some of you are just starting to walk in this freedom. You're just starting. It's almost like the wound is just starting to heal, right? It's just starting to kind of come along with the scab and heal over. And now, as you go back into the real world, the world outside, it's so important for us to not step back into a place where that wound can get open. It's so important for us to not allow ourselves to be enslaved once again to the very thing that was hurting us in the first place. Here's what Galatians says. It is for freedom that Christ set us free. For freedom. He set you free for the sake of wanting you to be free. That's why Christ loves you so much. He's like, listen, it is for freedom that I set you free, because I know how good freedom feels. How many of you know how good freedom feels now, right? Freedom feels pretty good. And are you completely free? Or there's still work to be done? Yes, but if you've experienced some form of freedom, I want you to raise your hand. Raise your hand. Some form of freedom, yeah. Stand firm then. And do not let yourselves be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. By a yoke of slavery. So, Christ set you free. What's our responsibility? If Christ set us free here, then our responsibility is to stand firm and not to allow ourselves, not let ourselves be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. What does this mean? This means that there are some actions and some things that we need to do to keep ourselves from being burdened again by this world. There's another verse in the Bible that talks about not being polluted by the world around us, that we have to live it out in a different way. When I was 17, I had a moment with Jesus, and it was at an Easter service. And those of you at Next Level, maybe you've heard this story before, but at that Easter service, I felt something, and there was this moment, and I said, God, if you're real, then I want to know you, and I took a step. And I didn't understand it all at first, but I just felt something different, and I was just happy, and I had joy, and from that moment on, I started going to church regularly and just trying to learn more about Jesus. But what I didn't realize is that there were some things and some ways that I was living that was actually burdening me and putting me back under this yoke of slavery. In fact, specifically, I didn't know that drinking was I knew it was bad, but, getting drunk, I didn't realize the consequences of that. Until 3 months after I crossed that line of faith, I'm at a party, and I just thought, I'll just drink a little bit, but 1 became 2, and 2 became 3. And the next week, or the next day, actually, I was accused of stealing, at this party, I was accused of stealing like $5,000 worth of stuff from this house. And I remember the agony of talking with detectives and people threatening me and coming to my workplace and just getting in my face and just people that were mad at me, thinking that I stole these things when I was drunk. And the reality is I didn't steal it, but I went through this entire week of just burden, this entire week of feeling like I was a slave again, this entire week of wondering why. And here's what I remember. I remember being in church that week and sitting in the back of the youth group. I don't even remember I think the message was on like the fruit of the Spirit. And I remember thinking this thought, and the thought was, maybe that's why God doesn't want me to be in that environment. Like maybe that's why he doesn't want me to be drinking and getting drunk, because in those environments and in that reality, there is a fruit of that. And that fruit isn't necessarily a fruit that leads us to life. In fact, that is a fruit that leads us, honestly, back into a yoke of slavery. And so there are some things that we need to do to start taking a step. And so later on, fast forward a month later, I went to camp with my youth group. And I remember at that camp crossing this line, and I rededicated myself to Jesus, and I said, God, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to leave that in the past. I'm not going to mess around with girls anymore. I realize now that you're trying to set me free from some things that were holding me captive. And God, I'm not going to, whatever they were. There's some friendships that I knew I needed to distance myself from. And so I began to take some steps because I wanted to now walk in this freedom. And here's my question. How many of you want to continue to walk in freedom after Collide Conference? Raise your hand. Then this is for you. I want to give you 3 practical things that you can do to start walking in freedom after Collide Conference. So here's the first thing that I did. The first thing that I did was I got some friends in good places. You guys remember that Garth Brooks song, I got friends in low places? You got it, yeah. I thought about that. I'm like, no, I got some friends in some good places. That's what happened. I changed it up. It wasn't the friends that I had in low places. I got some friends in good places. And specifically, this meant that there were some friendships that I needed to start prioritizing. And so after that camp, I started joining my church small group, and going weekly. I made it a priority that every week I started going to this small group and being a part of that. And the second thing I did is I joined a small group of guys, and we met outside of our church time, and we just started holding each other accountable. And we called our group Structure. It was not cool. But there was a store called Structure, and it like sold men's clothing, and it was all like, really tight, like spandex kind of things. It was so not cool. And now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, I would never want to admit to this again. So that was our group. It was called Structure, and we're trying to build the structure of our lives. But what it was a group of guys that were holding each other accountable and helping us to live as men of God, like we talked about yesterday. And so I prioritized these two groups. I found some friends in good places. But that honestly wasn't the only thing I did. Because I had friends that I really loved, and I had some good friends in high school. They were my party friends. They were the friends that when I pulled up in my big conversion van that we called the Shaggin' Wagon, filled with all sorts of party materials, they were those friends. And honestly, I at this point, I hated the sin, but I still loved those friends. And that's probably how you feel now. You hate the sin. You can start to see now how those things are hurting you and hurting the people around you. But those friends that maybe were your comrades in those moments, you still love them. And the hardest thing, and the hardest choice I had to make was realizing that there were some friends that I needed to start to take some steps away from. And that was hard. And when they would call and ask me if I wanted to go party, I had to just simply say, "No, man, I'm busy. I got to go to church," or something, I found a way to be busy. And it was hard. It was difficult, especially at first. But I was also open and honest with him. I said, "Listen, this is who I am now. This is, what's happened. Jesus is real." And I told my friends this. I said, "Eddie, you got to understand, like Jesus is real. Like, he's actually real, and he's changed my life. So I'm not going to be drinking anymore. Mike, listen, I'm not going to be drinking anymore. I'm not going to be doing drugs anymore. Chris, you got to. I'm not going to be messing around with girls anymore. Like, I'm just not going to do it. And here's why: because Jesus is actually real." And they thought I was crazy. At first. Because as they started to see my life change and they started to see the freedom that I was walking in, they stopped asking these questions like, "Why would you do that?" And they started asking, "How can I do that?" And something switched in their minds. And I'll be honest, not every single one of them came to know Jesus too. Some of them just still thought I was crazy and kept on with their ways. But there were some who came towards Jesus too. And they experienced and are still experiencing the freedom that started in that moment. You see, your life and what you do and your actions today actually matter for tomorrow. It really does. And I can remember back to that defining moment of choosing to get some friends in good places and start prioritizing the right relationships, how that formed and helped me to form a strong foundation of who I am today. So, you want to walk in freedom, right? So, you want to walk in freedom, right? Yeah. Okay, good. Then you have to get some friends in good places. Here's what 1 Corinthians chapter 15 says. It says this: "Bad company corrupts good character." So, it's impossible for you to continue to walk in freedom and not set some boundaries with people who are maybe living in the lifestyle that you want to move away from. Why? Because bad company will corrupt good character. Here's the second thing that I did. I set up boundaries. I set up some boundaries with some of those friends, but I also set up some boundaries for myself, specifically in the area of relationships. I had to set some boundaries. When I started walking in freedom, there were not healthy boundaries in my relationships. In fact, my boundaries with females were non-existent. We'll say that. And from this moment on, I knew I needed to start setting up some boundaries with the opposite sex because I had this feeling that God had another plan for me, that God had a better plan than the plan that I could see for myself today. And some of you, you've made that commitment, you've made that decision, and you've crossed this line. You said, I want to live pure, and I want to live and wait for sex to be in the context of marriage, because that's where it was designed to be. That's the best place for it to be, and that's where we experience the deepest intimacy of two people coming together. 1 Corinthians says it this way, that do you not know that he who unites himself or her with a prostitute is now with her in body? In other words, like someone who is not your wife, so don't get thrown off by prostitute, but just someone who is not your wife, not your husband. Students, the person that you're dating, even though you think you're going to marry them, they're still not your husband or your wife. They're not. And there's a lot that can change. And I know you have it so set in your mind that this is what is going to happen. I'm going to marry them, so we're good. Like it's, we don't have to feel guilty because we're going to get married anyway. So it's like, no big deal. But it is a big deal because you don't know what the future holds. In fact, statistically speaking, there are very few high school relationships that continue on into marriage. Not to say that there aren't any, but very few. For it is said, the two become one flesh. But whoever is united with the Lord is one with him in spirit. In other words, the two become one flesh. Sexual intimacy is the deepest intimacy two people can encounter. And so, in order for us to make sure that we are not just becoming two with a bunch of people, and one day we walk into this context of marriage and we're like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm also connected with like 20 more people. Is that cool? You don't want that to be your story. So if you don't want that to be your story, and you don't want to walk in the slavery once again of having all of these ties and connections, which today you can be pure, by the way. Today is a new day, and Jesus can redeem all of the past. But there is a decision that has to be made where we choose to say, God, I'm going to walk in your will for my life in sexual purity, and I'm going to set up some boundaries so that I can continue to walk in that sexual purity. Sometimes Christians think, well, the goal is just not to have sex, but everything else is okay, right? Like, yeah, the goal is not to, like, have intercourse, but, I mean, there's so much more we can do. No, the goal is purity. That's the goal. The goal is purity. Why? Because there's this verse that says, blessed are the pure in heart. Can you find that? Yeah, there it is. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. For they will see God. You've seen God this week, right? You want to continue to see God, right? Blessed are the pure in heart. And this isn't just sexual purity. This is motives. This is so much more. But blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. So purity brings clarity. Purity brings clarity. So the reason why we need boundaries is because purity brings clarity. So what are some boundaries? Put up those 3 lines for me, you guys. We have to set boundaries with the opposite sex physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Here's why. Here's what we do. We say, you know what? Yeah, I've made this decision. I want to live pure. And we set up a bunch of physical boundaries. And we say, okay, we're going to keep all of our clothes on, and we're only going to make out on the floor rolling around. Bad idea. But we set some form of physical boundaries. Some of you started dating and were like, okay, we're not going to kiss for like 6 months, okay? Cool. 3 days later, you're like, oh. And you're like, how did that happen? How did that happen? I don't understand. We made a decision, and something happened. Let me tell you why it happened. Because if we only set boundaries physically, then we're not understanding the 3 other ways that we as human beings connect. You are not just a physical being. you are also an emotional being. You are a spiritual being. So you have a body, soul, and spirit, right? So you have to understand that when people connect, there's connections on deeper levels, including emotional and spiritual. And when we don't set boundaries here, here's what happens. We hang out with our girlfriend or our boyfriend, and we just tell them everything in our heart. We just dump out our heart, and we just spend, hours on end, 2 o'clock in the morning. Let me just tell you what I'm thinking right now, and I'm afraid, and I'm thinking, it's just all this stuff. And we're friends, and we have an emotional connection, and we share our day, and then we start sharing some deeper emotions. We share our deep thoughts. We start reading our diary together about right here. Right? We watch The Fault in Our Stars together, about right here. And then we share all of our past experiences, our fears, and our emotions right here. And we just emotionally blah. And then spiritually, we go to church together. We go to Collide Conference together. We worship next to each other. We cuddle and hold hands while we're at church and worship. We read our Bibles together. We pray and worship and read the Bible together alone until we never read the Bible unless we're with them. And the problem is, if we only set boundaries physically, but yet emotionally we're super connected, and we have all this intimacy emotionally, and we have all this intimacy spiritually, we wonder why there's so much pressure to move this along. We wonder why there's all this temptation to move this along, and it's like, Pastor Will, I can't do it. I'm burning up in here. It's because you didn't set any boundaries. And it starts off, we're just holding hands, we're just kissing, we're just making out. Now our feet aren't touching the floor. Use your imagination. All right? No, don't use your imagination. Very good point. Don't. Stop. Purity brings clarity. All right? Here's the point. You want to walk in freedom, right? You want to walk in freedom, right? Okay, good. Then if you want to walk in freedom, then you have to set boundaries with the opposite sex emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically. You can't just set boundaries in one spectrum because you'll have so much temptation and you will not be able to withhold this temptation very easily. Okay, so we have to take this back. Some of you, you've gone way emotionally with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or a deep friend. You need to start taking this back. And where do you need to emotionally be intimate and be sharing out your heart and be vulnerable? You need to do that with people of your same gender, a small group, an accountability group. That's where you need to do that. Spiritually, you need to have spiritual connections, again, I think with your small group or your group of friends. The people that you can really talk to and share. And not to say that you can't share anything with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, but be mindful of this and set some boundaries. And you don't have to share everything, by the way, with someone that you're interested in. You don't have to. Hold back some of that. Allow there to still be a little bit of mystery of your heart. And then physically, set some boundaries as well. I'll give you a couple quick boundaries. These are practical. physical boundaries. Once you start setting some boundaries emotionally and spiritually, set some boundaries physically. Keep 4 feet on the floor at all times. That just keeps things upright and vertical. Instead of laying down, rolling around on the ground or on the couch. Keep your bed and your bed alone. Keep everything buttoned and zipped. And honestly, this one, you might argue with me, but keep your tongue in your mouth. And here's why. This is all progression. And your flesh, once you open one door, will automatically start pushing for the next one. And so you're like, well, it's no big deal, we can make out, and that'll be all we do. But heated makeouts often become huge temptations for continuation. And once we start opening that door, then this can become a runaway train quick. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about because some of the regret that you were facing Monday night was because of this. In moments where it just became a runaway train, and you look back and you're like, man, I wish I didn't do that. Well, then we have to bring the boundaries back a little bit. Does that make sense? If we want to continue to walk in freedom. All right, here's the third thing that I did. I started guarding my heart and my mind. And so I didn't just set boundaries in my relationships. I didn't just find some good friends. I started actually guarding my heart and my mind. And here's what I specifically mean. I mean what we watch and what we put into our lives. Remember that verse, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Why? Because purity brings clarity. And so this isn't just sexual purity. This is the purity of the things that we watch and listen to. 2 Corinthians 10 says this way, it says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. In other words, all the lies last night that we talked about, all these ideas or things that the enemy might throw at us, and we take captive every thought. So it starts in our mind. The battle starts in our mind to make it obedient to Christ. And so we have to start guarding our heart and our mind because oftentimes we're going to be battling things that we don't need to battle if we would just set some boundaries on what we allow to come into our life in the first place. Some of us, we're battling so much fear, but we're watching horror movies all the time. Or we're binge watching Netflix and things that are just filled with so much fear. And we wonder why we're struggling with anxiety. Because even though you might think, well, Will, that doesn't matter, that doesn't cause my fear, your brain doesn't know the difference. You have an emotional part of your brain that's actually, your emotional memory is stronger than your cognitive memory. So you cognitively know, like this is a movie, but your brain thinks, oh, this is trauma. This reminds me of that moment. This reminds me of that time when blank, blah, 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 and all of a sudden anxiety takes place. Or something happens in your life, and all of a sudden it reminds you of that movie because your brain, your emotional side, your more, just the raw side of you doesn't know the difference between what you experience in that movie and what you're experiencing right now in real life. So we have to start guarding our heart and our mind. That might mean, turning off the TV. It might mean actually stop playing Grand Theft Auto. And I know that's hard, and it seems like it's an innocent game, but after a while, we become desensitized towards violence. And, it's no big deal. I mean, they're only half-naked chicks, but they're drawn cartoons. They look pretty realistic. And your brain doesn't know the difference. And you wonder why you're struggling with pornography, because you're like, well, I'm not watching pornography, but you're watching Grand Theft Auto and all these soft porn things. The Victoria's Secret thing comes in the mail for your mom, and you're thumbing through it. Like, guard your heart. Guard your heart. Guard your heart when you click that first time. And you're like, I wonder what this is. You know what that is. Don't click it again. Guard your heart. Otherwise, it becomes click, 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 click. Guard your heart. Start to set up some boundaries about what you're going to allow in your life. This might mean setting up some boundaries in terms of when you put your phone away and you leave your phone in the living room. This might mean a conversation with your parents where there's no computers, TVs, or electronics in your room, and your room is just a place for sleeping. And you're like, Will, that sounds crazy. Nobody does that. I'll tell you what, some people do that. It's the people who want to live free. Every thought and action takes us in a direction. So the goal here isn't legalism and rules and laws. It's just asking this question, is this going to take me towards purity so I can see God more clearly, or is this going to take me in a direction that's away from that, towards impurity? So everything you do, whatever it is, every video game, every movie, every music that you listen to, all of it, you just have to ask this question, is this causing me to move towards impure thoughts, or is this going to cause me to move towards pure thoughts? That's all. So you get to decide then. Again, Grand Theft Auto, if you just decide that, that's not going to I don't think it's going to bother me. Okay. Well, then we'll disagree, and you just make that, you just make that decision. But the question is, will it move you towards pure, or will it move you towards impure? And I think if you're really honest, you would agree that there are some things that you love right now that if you're truly honest in a sober moment, you would agree with me that they move me towards impure thoughts. So how free do you want to be? It's not a matter of I can do this or I can't do that. No, it's a matter of how pure can I actually become? How much purity can I gain in my life? How much purity can I gain in my life? Why? Because purity brings clarity. Purity brings clarity. Let's play this game, all right? Everyone can participate in this, all right? We're going to close up right here. You get to decide. Watching a movie with sex scenes, is that going to move you towards purity or impurity? Impurity, right. You're smart. Listening to Drunken Love by Beyonce. Impurity. Impurity. Some of you you're just like, don't mess with Beyonce. Come on, Will. Listen, I'm not saying every Beyonce song's going to draw you to impurity, but sometimes, by the way, sometimes music will remind us of moments in our life that will take us back to impure moments. You know what I'm talking about? Those are the songs you want to avoid. I'm not saying you can't listen to any music that's not Christian. I listen to music that's not Christian. But if I listen to a song and all of a sudden it starts taking me back to a place or makes me start to think of certain things, if I listen to a song and it makes me want to fight somebody, or like it makes me have impure thoughts about the opposite sex, like I stop listening to that song. Does that make sense? So it will cause something in you, and you have to ask that question, wait a minute, is this in my mind, in my heart, is this causing me to move towards purity or impurity? And you have to make that decision. Calling out somebody on social media, pick your platform. Just calling them out and blasting them on social media. Is that going to move you towards purity or impurity? Impurity. Choosing to not drink at a party. Is that going to move you towards purity or impurity? Somebody said, trick question, don't be at the party. All right. But it's ultimately going to move you towards purity. Let's start with baby steps here. All right. Saying no to a guy who's asking you for nudes over text. Saying no will move you towards purity. Saying yes will move you towards impurity. What's the goal? Purity. Why? Because purity allows me to see clearly. Purity brings clarity. Purity brings clarity. How free do you want to be? Do you want to be free? Yes. Do you want to be free? Yes. Here's what Romans says. Last verse. Romans 12 says, don't copy the behavior and customs of the world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. We have to change the way we think. We have to change the way that we approach this world outside of this building. We have to change the way. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. How many of you want to know God's will for your life? You want to see him more clearly. You want to walk in freedom. If you want to walk in freedom, then you're going to need to find some friends that you're going to connect with regularly, weekly. Prioritize your time at church. But Will, I got baseball, I got this, I got football. No. Do everything you can to walk in freedom. You need those friends. Don't just get disconnected. Walk in freedom with those friends. Set up some boundaries. And guard your heart and your mind with what you allow in, because when you do, you change the way you think, then you'll be able to learn to know God's will for you. And I just want you to know, it's good. It's really good. You have a loving Heavenly Father that so desires you to walk in freedom, not just here, not just for this short moment, but for the rest of your life. And you might not think it's possible, but I want you to know it is 100% possible. It is 100% possible to walk in that kind of freedom. No matter what your situation is at home, no matter what your parents are pouring into you, you can choose to take some steps. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. In fact, I hope you realize it will be hard. But his presence will go with you. He will. And if you decide and take this moment and this opportunity to say, once again, God, I'm not just going to choose to walk in your freedom. I'm going to choose to take specific actions for that to happen. I'm going to change the way I live so that I can change the way I think, so that I can learn your will and walk in freedom. You want to walk in freedom? Do you want to walk in freedom? I believe you can. We're going to have breakouts in just a few minutes, and we're going to give you some more practicals on walking in freedom. And then after that, we're going to have our small groups. And small group leaders, I want you to spend time this morning and allow students to make some decisions on what they're going to change when they walk away from here. When they leave Collide Conference, the decisions that they're going to make and how they're going to stay accountable to that and who they're going to allow speak into their life so that they can continue to walk in freedom. So students, do you want to walk in freedom? I believe you can. Let me pray for you. Father, thank you so much for this week. God, thank you for your presence. Thank you for your love for us. And God, thank you that you have given us everything we need so that we can walk in this freedom that you so desire us to have. God, thank you for setting us free, and that at this moment, the scales have fallen off our eyes, and God, we don't have to go back to the yoke of slavery. But from this moment on, we can walk in your freedom every day, every moment. We won't be perfect. God, we know that. But we know your grace and your mercy is good. And we can choose, when we slip, to walk again in the freedom that you've given us. So God, I pray that you would help us take some steps to prioritize the right relationships, to set boundaries in the right places, and to guard our hearts and our minds. In Jesus' name, we pray all these things. And everyone said, amen. We're going to have the map up here on the screen. So if you guys want to put that up. And if I can get some help moving this TV so they'll be able to see it. We're going to let you know where the breakouts are. Dusty, is this your job, or am I missing anything, or is this all you're doing? This is it? All right, so we're going to put that map up. And if you're a middle school girl, where are you at? Let me hear you. Oh, yeah, you're raising your hands. I see now. All right, so middle school girls, you're going to go to the gateway room. So as you go out here, take a